There is growing concern tonight about the growing power of the presidency. Correspondent Shannon Bream looks at what some consider a disturbing expansion of that authority under President Obama.
Now, if Congress refuses to act, I've said that I'll continue to do everything in my power to act without them.
It's a pledge the president has repeatedly made and kept. From administrative directives to law enforcement officers telling them not to arrest or deport the vast majority of those who are in the U.S. illegally, to major rewrites of the Affordable Care Act via speeches or the White House blog. President Obama has grown increasingly willing to use the powers of the executive branch to effect major changes without ever going through Congress. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, a supporter of both the president and his policies, calls the trend troubling.
The problem with what the president is doing is that he's not simply posing a danger to the constitutional system. He's becoming the very danger the Constitution was designed to avoid. That is the concentration of power in any single branch.
Other constitutional experts argue that President Obama is carrying out his constitutional duties to take care that the laws be faithfully executed by revising Obamacare in ways that will make it viable.
I have to say that hyperventilating about how extraordinary and unprecedented and unconstitutional these delays are is just that. It's hyperventilation, and it's contrary to obvious historical fact.
House Republicans say talk of impeachment is futile, given a democratically controlled Senate. But given what they believe is at stake, say they'll keep fighting.
He doesn't have a debate in the Oval Office about what he wants to do. He does what he wants to do. Then you no longer have representative democracy. So that's what's at stake here.
GOP members have also expressed frustration that under current legal precedent, it's virtually impossible for them to bring a lawsuit against the executive branch. Brett?
Shannon, thank you.
I'm asking Mr. Cannon, please.
I think it was to me, and you're asking if there's no judicial remedy and there's no electoral remedy, what do the people do? To what particular sort of abuses are you?
Any one of the list of the enumerated powers, for example, ending with the declaration of war, because that's the starkest of all.
There is a procedure in the Constitution that it allows the people to amend the Constitution without going through Congress. That is another method where the people can try to restrain the executive.
Let me suggest then, if that should happen, why would an executive with such disrespect for the Constitution today honor an amended Constitution from a constitutional convention?
That is an excellent question.
I think I'd like to turn to Mr. Turley and ask him if he's had a chance to reflect upon that earlier statement of the situation that we are in and where this goes. We need to look into this future, and I'd ask that unanimous consent for that additional minute to ask each of the witnesses to tell us what's America look like in the next 25 years if we have executive upon executive that builds upon this continual stretching or disregard of the constitutional restraints and the disrespect for Article 1. I start with Mr. Turley.
You may answer the question as quickly as you can.
Okay. I really have great trepidation of where we are heading, because we are creating a new system here, something that is not what was designed. We have this rising fourth branch in a system that's tripartite. The center of gravity is shifting, and that makes it unstable. And within that system, you have the rise of an uber presidency. There could be no greater danger for individual liberty. And I really think that the framers would be horrified by that shift, because everything they dedicated themselves to was creating this orbital balance, and we've lost it.
As I've said before, I think the ultimate check is elections, but I don't think you should be hesitant to speak the word in this room. A check on executive lawlessness is impeachment, and if you find that the president is willfully and repeatedly violating the Constitution, if on your hypothetical he were to declare war, I would think that would be a clear case for impeachment.
Well, I guess this is the first time I've heard anyone complain about the possibility that this president is going to unilaterally declare war and be over-aggressive about that. I don't really think that's much of a description of his foreign policy. But Congress has lots of power if it chooses to use it. The power of the purse is an enormous power. I think that if I were you, I'd find ways to influence policy in using the Congress's powers, which you're not doing. I mean, for example, we're hearing complaints about the president's actions to not enforce deportation against certain classes of immigrants. You know, instead of complaining about that, this committee could hold a markup and report out a comprehensive immigration reform bill, send it to the floor.
Mr. Lazarus, you are not you, but the questioner is 2.5 minutes over. So if you can dispense with giving us advice on what our legislative agenda should look like and answer the question, I'd be grateful to you.
Okay. Well, but that is an answer. I think that Congress has a lot of power and it can use it.
Okay. And I assume that the failure to exercise is also an exercise of power, the failure to act. Mr. Cannon, would you like to briefly answer?
Maybe Mr. Lazarus knows better than I do how many bombs the president has to drop without congressional authorization before that becomes war. I don't know the actual number. But I think what Mr. King was getting at is, you know, there is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government, or a revolutionary right to overthrow it. And that is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. But as I mentioned in my written and my delivered testimony, if the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, then they will conclude that neither are they. That is why this is a very, very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations on people that the legislature did not approve, etc.